Okay, everyone can see it says ELA data. Yes. Thanks, Joe. Okay, so just to kind of give a little backdrop, and I did share this, and for Superintendent Domingo and I, it's important that we always keep this in context of what our beliefs are and building those strong foundations for our students across schools, and in reading in particular. It is around the 5 pillars of reading: the phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. Currently, District 25 ranks 5th amongst all districts in New York City in reading. District 2, 26, 3, and 20 are currently performing at a higher rate. District 20 within a 1% of District 25 in that fourth position. Overall, District 25 performance, we were at 62.6% in reading. It's just nearly 2% improvement from where we were in 2019. And I did this comparison just so that you can have a little bit of context as to where we were when all students were taking this assessment from the previous time. So you'll see that we did improve, but there are some interesting noticings that you'll hear me talk about in just a few minutes about our current performance. Because when you look at it across grades, there are some differences there that are important for us to recognize. I also included in this document how we performed comparatively speaking with iReady. We did outperform what iReady data metrics did say for our children in grades 3 to 8 in reading. It was very, very close in math, which you'll see shortly as well. So when we look at us in comparison to citywide, borough, and district, so we are in gray, the borough is in orange, and citywide is in blue. You will notice that our bar consistently across grade levels is at a much higher rate than that of New York City, and then of the borough, which you'll see in orange. Overall, we were about 14%, just under 14% higher as a district performance-wise for children that were on or above grade level on the New York State assessments in comparatively speaking to the borough and the city. Some grades a little bit less or more than others, but you can see that this is a really good representation of what's happening across New York City and our district schools as a whole. So comparatively speaking, we are still performing well, although we do know that there is a lot of work for us to continue to do at the district level. And why I say that is within the context of these next 2 slides. So these next 2 slides show how District 25 performed in grades 3 to 5, and then in grades 6 to 8. Children in grades 3 to 5, comparatively speaking to 2019, and these are apples and oranges. It's not really the same. It's not the same cohort of children. It's not the same time period of when these children were assessed. It's really just to give you a little context of where we had performed last. But in children in grades 3 to 5 did perform at a lower rate comparatively speaking to the 2019 assessment. Grade 4 exhibited the largest difference from where we were in the past by 7.9%. Grade 3 performed 3.1% lower than we had in the past, and grade 5 just 0.2% lower than grade 5 in the past. Now, it was a very different story for children in grade 6 through 8. Children in grade 6 through 8 performed at a higher rate than what we had seen in 2019, with grade 7 exhibiting the greatest difference of 13.6%. Higher rate of proficiency than what we were in 2019. Grade 6 performed 6.6% different, and grade 8 4.8% different from where we were in 2019. And the most encouraging part of this was the lower rate of children performing at level 1 in grade 6 to 8, which was about 10% difference from where we had been in the past. And certainly there are a lot of variables in here that are hard to measure as to the reasons why that may have existed. But this is really currently what the data does say for students in District 25. Students with disabilities, we did see improvement for our students with disabilities in general as a district. We improved by 2.6% overall when we compare 2019 to 22. With 4.4% less students performing at level 1. But having said that, you guys can see that these bars we still have a significant amount of work to do for our children with special needs, as these bars indicate, with a significant percentage of our children currently performing outside that sphere of success. So we do have a lot of work to do here. It is evident across grade levels that we did make some improvements in terms of growth for our students with disabilities across grades, with the exception to grade 4. Grade 4, we did not see the same improvement that we saw in grades 3 and 5 when we're looking at grades 3 to 5 altogether. So still more work to do in our earlier grades in grades 3 to 5 for our special education students, which is something that we are focused on, as you guys know, our cycles of MTSS, to ensure that our children are receiving what they need in those grade levels. We're going to continue to emphasize that as a district. The most significant change was a 15% decrease in students performing at level 1, though, I will say, in grade 5, which is what we do want to see. We want to see that change in performance for our kids, albeit, grade 4 did not necessarily show that same type of trend. Grade 6 through 8, again, positive change. If we look at 19, just to make sure that everyone can see these bars, on the left-hand side, you'll see 2022 grade 8, 2019 grade 8. Those two bars will show you the performance difference between those. Grade 7, same thing. Grade 6, same thing. So we are looking for the top bar in the grade level to be an improvement upon the lower bar in each of those grades. And you will see that there is a positive change in grades through grade 6 through 8, very similar to what you saw in the overall. Same pattern exists for our students with disabilities in this area. Grade 7 and grade 6 did see a significant decline if you look at those bars in terms of percentage of children that were at that level 1 rate, which is what we do want to see for our kids and want to continue that work moving forward. District performance for our Ls, we did improve by nearly 5% for our children, our English language learners. We do, comparatively speaking, perform at a much higher rate than that of New York City when we're talking about our Ls, by nearly 10%. When you won't see that on this slide, but I'm just sharing that we are nearly 10% higher, comparatively speaking, to Ls across New York City. So, promising work here, but we do know that there is a tremendous amount of work that we need to do for our Ls moving forward. We have been working towards this end for quite a while. It's consistently a focus of ours, and it will continue to be so. One of the things that we're fortunate is to see that our children in the earlier grades are doing really well in terms of testing children out and then performance on the state assessment. But having said that, we still have a lot of work for those children that are unable to get past that space of proficiency by the time they get into grade 3, and then we see how the performance tends to wind up declining over time. So grade 3 at the bottom of this slide, you'll see that they performed at a much higher rate than that of grade 5. That trend continues into our upper grades for a number of reasons. One, there are children there that tend to stay in that expanding range and need that additional bump. And we also have a significant number of new children that come into our school system that are now newcomer Ls that are being tested just the same as they were in the past. So it's kind of that ongoing process of improvement that we're trying to do to accelerate learning for our Ls, especially when they come into us in grades 4, 5, and 6, so that they are ready as possible for high school when they get there. And that's where you will see this pattern. Notice that there is a difference between what's happening in our early childhood grades and then what's happening in our middle schools for our Ls because of the reasons that I just described. But we are improving the outcomes, particularly in grade 6. You'll notice that there is a change there, but that we still have a significant amount of red and orange that we have to address as a district for our English language learners.
Mike, if I could just comment. This is a remarkable achievement, because if you look at the demographics, your proportion of Ls is almost 20%. whereas the city as a whole is a little less than 14%, and the borough is 16%. So you have a much higher proportion of L's than I haven't looked at the city as a whole, but you have one of the highest proportion of L's in terms of your demographics. Yet they're out achieving everybody else, citywide.
Yeah, thanks for that, Gus. And one of the things that Superintendent Domingo will often say is that if you are a teacher in District 25, you're a teacher of L's, as it's a significant portion of the students that we serve, and we'll continue to push towards accelerating that learning, over time. And I'll talk a little bit about, what we have in currently in play for our children, particularly in grades 4 and 5, where we see a number of our students in that space of needing to get over the hump. So we are implementing an intervention program, which I'll talk about in just a moment. Similarly to our other subgroups, we have seen improvement overall in terms of our subgroups, with the exception to 2 in District 25. Our Native American, which is a very, very, very small subgroup of children in District 25, a fraction of 1% of children. We did see a small decline for our Native American population, and we did see a small decline for our Hispanic population, which is our second largest demographic that we serve in District 25. And we did see a decrease of 1.9% when we compare that to 2019 for our Hispanic students. Each of our other subgroups did show improvement from where they were in 2019 overall in District 25. So again, promising information here, but at the same time, lots to do for our kids. And where it brought us as a district, and this is a document that you guys have seen us talk about here at the DLT, so I'll review this very briefly. But our focus is going to be on reading, especially when you look at our overall trends in data from grades 3 to 5 and then 6 to 8. We know we're still in that space of that learning to read, where we still need to do and provide some supports for our kids. So our goal is that through that analysis of data, that our schools, and certainly at the district level, will be able to really be strategic to provide those supports through our inquiry-based process of equity visits. What are we noticing inside of our data? How are we using that to support our systems of MTSS, starting with Tier 1 instruction? What does our classroom practice look like? And what does our curriculum look like to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our kids? And then through the lens of CRSE, in terms of what do we know about them in order to make really good choices. So for us as a district, where it has brought us is inside of the 5 pillars of reading, really getting strategic around foundations and the use of foundations and Hegarty, and really training our community around something known as letters, which is basically building experts in the area of reading instruction across our early childhood grades. And we're excited to say that we have nearly 370 individuals across our early childhood and elementary schools that are being trained in this area. So we're super excited to see where this brings us as a district. We had our first training this past week for 2 cohorts of teachers and administrators. Over 80 people started their training on Friday, and we have another set of cohorts of folks that are starting their training this week. So we are underway with the training supports that are being provided through letters, and we will continue to update the DLT on our progress as we move forward. There are checkpoints that letters puts in, so that our teachers and building leaders are really connected to what's happening within the context of the training and how our teachers are receiving it. Systems of MTSS, as I mentioned, Tier 1, 2, and 3 will be something that we are paying attention to. It's going to be part of our training that we're engaging our building leaders in, and certainly teachers as the year goes on, in terms of what we're noticing about our instructional core, and then the interventions that come after that for children that need those additional supports. District grades 3 to 5, also similar focus around MTSS. Biggest difference here is the CLAVES program for our Ls. This is an intervention support for our children, particularly in that transitioning and expanding space of learning. We're really excited about that. We have 9 schools that are going to be participating in this work, and then looking hopefully forward to engaging some of our middle schools in this same process when we get into January, for some of our children there that also need that intervention. So the CLAVES pilot, the CLAVES group from Boston College and NYU have agreed to allow us to use some of these resources as we get to the middle of the year. So we're excited about that. In terms of grades 6 to 8, it's really a focus on reading to learn and really building on our skills within the context of close reading of text, specifically nonfiction, and then getting into conversations around MTSS tier 1 through 3.
Mike,
Yeah,
can I
Danielle.
just, I just want to say one thing. I want to go back to grades 3 to 5. Mike and I really have had a lot of discussion about, our reading focus. As you know, we used to be number 4, and now we're number 5 by a percentage rate. So we're going to catch back up to that. And that is a promise that I'm making to everyone. And actually what I think is really funny is I mentored the District 20 superintendent, and he took all of my stuff, and now he's beating me. So I'm not giving him my stuff anymore. So just so you know. But, one of the things that we have spoken about is the learning to read piece. We are really excited about the team that we have, the interventionists and the literacy support specialists that we have as part of our district team that will be working directly with schools. So not only will they be receiving the outside training and letters, but then our team will be going into the schools to help support that. And we think that we're in a really good space there. A conversation that we've been having with our elementary schools in the upper elementary is that when we talk about learning gaps in reading, and what is required just in terms of phonics and phonemic awareness, we want them to tackle right away those learning gaps, because if you think about it, and if you remember back to those days when your children were engaging in the learning to read aspect, a lot of it is around intonation, watching people's lips, really listening, looking to what happens to people's actual necks or, teeth. And mask wearing really took away a lot of that. So that's why you see like systems and structures for MTSS in grades 3 to 5. We will be continuing to accelerate readers. And as part of us looking at our data in a targeted way, we want our schools in grades 3 to 5 to know who's already reading and who is ready to be accelerated and to deliver that within the classroom. However, we also really need to target many of those kids. And those kids are not just our struggling learners. Those are like kids that, if we were not in a pandemic, may have been able to pick up on those phonics and phonemic awareness skill sets that they just do not have. So this is a really big push for us in grades 3 to 5. And I just wanted to make everybody clear that we've been talking about making sure that our students' needs are met in these grades, in particular in reference to MTSS. Joe, I see you have a question.
Yes, so I just had a question. I wasn't sure. Do you have, Dr. Mike, do you have the data regarding the migrant immigrants that are coming into New York City? Because I think we're going to get a huge influx of students. I don't know how many are coming to our district, but they're not going to speak English. And I don't know, do we have a strategy to deal with that? Like, is that part of your planning?
Yes, so I can answer that. Currently, and I say this all the time, Flushing is a hub of immigration. Historically, it's one of the things that makes District 25 so diverse, because many different people from all over the world come into New York City through Flushing. So we have always had groups of people emigrate to New York, and it is a large part of what makes our district and the number of Ls that we have. In terms of the asylum seekers, we do not have a large amount of students as in other areas of New York City that you may be reading about. If there are individual people that are coming in the way they always have, we are continuing to support them in the ways that we always have done so, just in terms of providing E&L instruction. But we don't currently have those large amount of asylum seekers being placed in our district. Louis, I
Thank
don't
you.
know who's, yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah, we have, yeah, it has not been a significant as on, as some of our other, borough districts that may have had a huge influx. It has not necessarily been the same for us, at least not at this time.
Mike, you're
Um,
sharing your emails.
Oh, geez. I did not know I was doing that. My apologies.
Okay.
So just kind of bringing us, into the space. Were there any questions, other questions about the reading information that I just shared? Okay. So moving this into math. Math, we are in a space very much like the rest of the city. We have seen a decline of a little over 7% in terms of performance from where we had been in the past. This is a trend that existed across New York City as well. So it is a pattern that does exist for us also. Having said that, we do want to continue to build on our work in District 25, particularly within the context of the training that we've been providing our schools over the past several years, where we had seen a tremendous amount of success in our math work as a district, within the context of building those rigorous math tasks and productive struggle to support conceptual understanding of our kids. We still continue to sustain our ranking in New York City as number 3 in the city of New York in terms of math performance. And you'll see shortly what that looks like comparatively speaking to the borough and the rest of the city in mathematics. So as a district, we did perform at 58.4%, comparatively speaking to 2019, where we were at 65.8% in mathematics. What is interesting here is you'll see that iReady at the end of the year metric had us at 61.33%. So it was very close to where we wound up ending up at the end of the school year in terms of the New York State assessment and the end year diagnostic that our kids took in May. So there was some alignment there between those assessments, which is why it's really very important for us as a collective to make sure that we're having these conversations around the diagnostic tools that we're using. Where are our kids? How are they performing? And then what is next? And that's got to be a common conversation across schools, across school leadership teams. So us as a team continuing to share this information, across our community, so that we're having this discourse around where are we and what are we doing next. Really super important. When you look at our district compared to the city, we did perform at a much higher rate than that of the borough of Queens and that of the city as a whole. And you can see that disparity across each of the grade levels. Now we were at 58.4%. Overall, New York City was at 37.9% in mathematics. So we still are performing at a much higher rate than New York City as a whole. But having said that, we still have a lot of room that we have to make up in terms of ground that we have to make up, but also continuing to push our learning from elementary school all the way through grade 8. Now, one of the biggest disparities that you'll see here is in grade 8. 35.7% is not the norm outcome that you'll see here in District 25, which had the largest difference from where we were in the past. And I'll talk about that in a few slides. But needless to say, there is a lot more that we have to do. And unlike what you saw in reading, where our middle schools outperformed our elementary, you're seeing a little bit of a different trend here in mathematics, where our children in grades 3 to 5 outperformed the students in grades 6 to 8 in mathematics. So it kind of flipped itself a little bit in in overall trend for mathematics. Now, grades 3 to 5, and what you're going to notice is a downward trend in each of our grade levels within our subgroups, whether it's our ethnic subgroups or our students with disabilities or ELs. You're going to notice a downward trend for the most part across each of these areas. You'll see that in grades 3 to 5. Again, similar type of data tool, 22 versus 19 across grade levels, grade 5 starting it all the way through grade 3. You'll see grade 4 and 5 exhibited the greatest difference with 8.2% less children performing on or above grade level compared to what it was in the past. Grade 3 and grade 3 to 5, we saw an increase in the number of students that were performing at level 1, which is not something that we want to see or replicate moving forward in the district. Grade 6 to 8, again, similar type of pattern. The grade 8 showed the greatest difference of 15.7% of children performing on or above grade level. We did have a significant percentage more children taking the Regents assessment this year than what we had this past year than what we've had in the past. Upwards of 800 fewer students took the New York State assessment this year, which did contribute to the lower performance. But having said that, that's still something we need to improve upon as a district community. So lots more to do. Grade 6 and 7 saw nearly a 12% difference in 12 and nearly 7% difference in terms of performance from where we were in 2019. And it's pretty clear when you look at these bars back to back, the difference in the amount of red and orange for our grades 6 to 8 as compared to our students in grades 3 to 5. So we have a lot more work that we do need to do to make sure that our kids are receiving what they need across grade levels, but in particular, what we're noticing in our middle schools as well. Our students with disabilities, as I mentioned, did also see a decline in performance by around 4.2% from where we were in 2019. You'll also notice that there was an increase in students at level 1 in this area, which is not what we want to be able to see for our children with special needs. Same patterns exist when you look at grades 3 to 5 students with disabilities as compared to students with disabilities in grades 6 to 8. Students with disabilities in grades 6 to 8, a significant amount of work that needs to happen here to make sure that our children are prepared and ready to go for high school. A very big disparity when you're looking at grades 3 to 5 compared to grades 6 to 8. So we do have more things to consider and more things to work on in our upper grades to ensure our children are ready to go for high school. Our L performance, similar type of pattern. And one thing that you should know that you don't see here, our students with disabilities and our Ls, although we did have a decline, are still performing at a much higher rate than that of the city and the borough, comparatively speaking. But we always come back to District 25. It's certainly great to kind of think about how we're performing against the borough and the city, but we're also looking at this against ourselves, and we know we have a lot of improvement that we have to engage in over the next several years and moving forward beyond that. But our Ls did decline in terms of performance. We saw an 8.9% decrease from 22 to 2019. We also saw an increase in the number of students that were performing at level 1 for our Ls. As you can see between these two bars, it shows pretty clearly where that there is a decline in performance for our children. Same patterns will exist 3 to 5 as they did with this overall bar. You'll notice here as well, 6 to 8 and 3 to 5. When I flash them back and forth, you can see that the bars are significantly different when we're looking at overall L performance. You'll see that decline in grade 5 from 19 to 22. You'll see it in grade 4, and you'll see it in grade 3. Grade 3, obviously, the performance is at a much higher rate for our Ls, comparatively speaking to other grades, which is typically the trend that we wind up seeing for our kids in the earlier grades. The performance is at a higher rate than that of the upper grades moving forward. So we do need to continue to work in this area for each of our grade levels moving forward. For our students, in terms of our subgroups, subgroup performance, each of our subgroups saw a decline in District 25. I only have our top 4 subgroups in this area, but each of our subgroups declined in mathematics. The most significant are our children of color, our Hispanic, and our Black students. Did show the greatest decline in performance when we compare 2019 to 2022. So a lot more work needs to be done in math in general, but certainly our focus on our children performing outside that sphere of success in District 25. Now, one of our contributing factors to lower performance is something that we do need to pay attention to as a district, and this is our overall chronic absenteeism rates. It does have a significant impact on our children in terms of their performance. When you look at our bars and when we compare it to the city and borough overall, the citywide, and this is really significant, citywide chronic absenteeism rates were at 30% for all students, compared to us at 18%. And you say, you know what, Mike, that's really quite a big difference, and it is. But this 18% does show how our district how it impacts our district as a whole when we're talking about performance. And you look at it across subgroups, the percentages are really, really high when we're talking about chronic absenteeism across some of our subgroups. Over 38% of our Black population, 31% of our Hispanic population, chronically absent. Our Ls, 21%. Our students with disabilities, almost 27%. When we're talking about chronic absenteeism and the rates of success and how it impacts it, children that were chronically out compared to not chronically out in terms of the ELA assessment was around 26% lower in terms of performance rates when we're talking about children that are chronically absent versus those that aren't, and a 36% difference in mathematics for children that are chronically out versus those that are not chronically out. So it is significant. We did talk about this at the CEC. We're going to talk about it here. We're talking about it with our building leaders in schools to make sure that their case teams are really working with our families, making sure that they're communicating the importance of our children being in buildings every day. And we know exactly where we were last year, and the year before that. Attendance rates have been impacted by lots of different reasons, and we acknowledge that. But at the same time, we want to make sure that our students and families are aware of all of the things that we're doing to make sure that they are safe and healthy while they're in school, and want to make sure that our families are aware of all of the things that are available to them in their buildings, to make sure that our kids are in a good space to learn every single day. There are times that sometimes it's just the unknown that we're not aware that when our child is out 2 days a month, that it will lead to chronic absenteeism. So it's about making sure that we're transparent and making everyone aware of that, so that those days when it becomes other variables that play a role in our child not being there, that we're there to support so that our kids are there every single day. We're not saying that if a child's sick that they should come to school, but we are saying that we want to make sure that we do everything possible when our children are healthy that they're in the building, because it does have a significant impact on learning for sure. And that brings me to a close on where we are currently as a district. And just so everyone does know, we do have a snapshot. We're getting closer to all of our kids being assessed on the iReady. I will be able to share more information on that during our next DLT. What it does preliminarily look like, interestingly enough, is the data where we're starting this year is very, very similar to what we saw at the start of last school year. So we have lots of work to do for sure, but I'll give you another update on that during the next DLT.
Yep. Thank you, Dr. D'Antona. And just so you know exactly what Dr. D'Antona just said about where we're starting is the leverage point of our conversation at our principals meeting tomorrow, just really around solidifying and having a clear understanding of what MTSS will look like, as well as professional learning for teachers to support student growth in these areas. Before I go to the high school, Gus, I didn't know if you wanted to say anything in regard to the K-8 data that we just went over.
The only thing that I noticed, and it's interesting, is that in terms of subgroups, the white subgroup in both math and in ELA was lower than the citywide performance. Not by much, but that stuck out because that's not usually the case with your data. And it was yourself and the two highest performing districts in Queens had that pattern. I don't know, what it is attributed to, but it just was different than your charts, which I've been looking at, as you know, for quite a long time.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you. And yes, absolutely. We've been having conversations about that. And, when we target looking at different subgroups, that includes all subgroups, right? So if your school has had a decline in a particular subgroup, the expectation is that their needs are being targeted through MTSS. Now, I want to open up to any questions regarding K-8 data before I turn the presentation for high school data over to Bill and Gus. So, Francis, I see your hand up. How are you?
I didn't realize my hand was up. I'm trying to work this on my phone because I'm working. But
Hi,
anyway,
anyway, Francis.
how
I
are
can
you?
can I
Thank you
lower
for-
your hand? Do you mind? You want me to lower it? Oh, you did it. Okay.
No, but I did now since you called
Okay.
on me. I wanted to say that I checked some of the surveys and I noticed that a lot of kids didn't feel supported, and I'm wondering if that's why they don't want to come to school.
Yeah, I think when we are looking at chronic absenteeism and working with our case teams, it's about everyone having a voice. It can't just be the school saying you have to come to school. It's really about, creating an environment where true conversations can happen, right? And, and so that is something that we work very hard to support our case teams about, that it's not, a lot of times we sort of undo ways that we grew up to say, like, you have to come to school because you have to come to school. Now it's about, let's talk about some of the things that we can help you with to make you feel more comfortable. So absolutely, Francis. And looking at surveys like that is part of the work that is expected, to say, like, well, how do kids really feel and how do parents really feel? So thank you. Okay. Any other questions regarding K-8 data? All right, so Bill and Gus, I will turn the second part of the data meeting over to the two of you.
Okay, Bill, do you have the high school chart up? Did you
I'm
share
going to
it?
share the high school data. Let me just try to share my screen here.
And one thing that Bill and I discussed prior to the meeting is that this data is geographic. So it includes high schools that are not all under Superintendent 2. And some of the high schools that are not that are included in the data are transfer high schools that are not under this particular superintendent. So I don't know whether you would agree, but the percentages, if we just looked at Superintendent 2's schools, might be a bit higher. But I wanted to point that out on the data. It's done geographically by Central, and so it includes all high schools in the geographic area. And that's important to realize because when the state looks at accountability, they take in all high schools and all schools in the geographic district, not just who's reporting to which superintendent. Okay, Bill.
Does everyone see the panel, the data
Yep.
panel?
Yep.
All right. So as Gus was saying, that's absolutely correct. I'm not exactly sure how many schools are outside of Superintendent 2's purview, but quick research on the internet showed that there were at least 6, and we have 6 for that for Superintendent 2. So it's at least 50-50, but there could be more schools, more high schools. So just to kind of review this first slide, this is District 25. This is our 4-year graduation rate by diploma type and combined totals. So what you'll see on the far left are all of our students. So you have a distinction between the local diploma and the total Regents diplomas, and that's a total of 74.1%. Then it's broken down by the different ethnicities. You have Asian, which is 83%. Black is 77.5%. Hispanic is 67.4%. Multiracial, 80%. Native American, 73%. White, 68%. English language learners, 50.9%. And as Dr. D'Antona was saying earlier, even Flushing and this area of Queens has always been a hotbed for new immigrants, and we really relish new immigrants because they do bring so much diversity to our plate. And you can see, I'm guessing that we will probably see an uptick in students. I know I'm just thinking of a school within not within District 25, but Newcomers High School, basically within 1 year increased its student population from 400 students to 900 students. So I don't know if that will impact D25 per se, but just thinking about those types of numbers and those a school to actually double in size is not something that happens every day. So then we have our white students at 68%. I already read that. Students with disabilities, 44.9%, and are economically disadvantaged at 75.6%. Are there any questions on this particular panel?
Bill, if you could just comment, because
Yeah.
I have an understanding, but I'm sure you have a better understanding of what the local diploma, that little bar at the top
Sure.
means as opposed to the Regents diploma.
Sure. So the whole goal is for all students to receive a 65 or higher on Regents exams, at least 5 Regents exams in order to graduate from high school. And as students are able to garner additional Regents exams, they can move forward with like an advanced Regents diploma. But what's captured here is just the total Regents and a local. So a local would be how would I say, students are not performing as high on the Regents exam, but it's still a diploma that allows students to graduate from high school. Anything that you want to add, Gus?
Well,
And-
the percentage of local diploma as opposed to the Regents diploma is always much smaller. But the Regents diploma is, it's my understanding, is the gold standard still in New York
Correct.
City. So the more Regents diplomas per category we have, as opposed to local diplomas, that speaks to a more robust performance level. Is that
Yes,
understanding correct? Yeah.
it does, Gus. The other thing I would say is that we're living in a time of shifting sands. So the Board of Regents is trying to include different assessments so that students can have advanced courses. So this would be, let's say, AP for all courses, College Now courses. There's the Seal of Civic Readiness. There's also CTE courses. So all what the city is trying to do is to re-envision how we can get students to have not only an opportunity for an advanced Regents diploma, but also to have the ability to have differentiated courses. So taking a CTE class and having a CTE certification, or taking an AP class and being able to satisfy receiving, let's say, a level 3, so that a student would get college credit. That all adds to the portfolio of the high schools, and it helps with graduation numbers.
Thank you.
So the second slide is showing the 4-year August graduation rate. So generally in the August graduation, that's when we have summer school. You'll have maybe a couple additional students, depending on the size of the high school, graduate during that summer. So this is showing a combined effort of June and August. So the numbers should have clicked up a little bit. So you'll see for all of our students, it's 78.2%. The Asian students, 86.6, 81.5 for Black, 71.8 for Hispanic, 81.5 for multiracial, 80.8 for Native American. And again, that's a very small number of students in our schools. White students, 73%, ELL, 57.4. Students with disabilities, 52.9, and 79.5 for economically disadvantaged. What I can also say, just kind of speaking to this data point, when you look at the L's and the students with disabilities, that's part of the Superintendent's two's focus this year, is to ensure that we have supports for our multi-language learners and our students with disabilities. That's a big focus for this year. And we have rich professional development opportunities for the teachers and for the APs to attend so that they're learning new strategies and skills to not only partner with families and partner with the students, but also to make demonstrative gains in the classroom. The next few slides are historical data. So this is graduation rate from 2021, which is the 2017 cohort. And again, you'll see that really the district is kind of riding at about 78.5%. What I would say, if I were able to show a different slide of just Superintendent two's schools, is that throughout the last few years, just looking at D25 high schools, we've had consistent year-over-year improvement, which is not always reflective in these reports. Gus, do you think I should go through the other years? Because it paints, you know, a similar story.
Similar
You know,
picture. Well,
certain years were better than others. You know, here
yeah.
you can see the district was 81.2%
Right.
in
The
2016.
only comment I have is that if you look at the 4-year graduation rate for the 217 cohort, citywide it's 81.2%, and in terms of our geographic district, it's 78.5. So I would hope that our target is to be at or above the citywide level.
True. True. And what I would say is that our schools that we're responsible for are above the citywide average for graduation rate.
Good.
Does that include Flushing?
This includes all the D25 high schools.
Which includes
No,
Flushing.
so what I'm saying is a Flushing, because actually
Yes.
Flushing was one of the schools that was pulling us down. So I know our transfer
No,
schools are part of that.
Flushing's graduation rate has increased
Okay.
almost double digits over the last few years.
Mm.
Our big concern with Flushing, with any of the schools, is now that in for the last few years the U.S. Regents has not been given. So with the Regents coming back online and with ESSA back in place, we're concerned essentially because of the pandemic and the lost learning for the children. You know,
So
that's
Gus,
you know,
yeah.
that's
So
a
Gus,
problem.
if you can, I don't know if you can ask to do that for us, because I know Joe has his hand raised. I can almost predict the question he's going to ask.
Yep.
Is that one of the things that the DLT has asked for a really long time is why District 25 high school data is less than citywide in terms of graduation rates. So we really want to, we do understand that we have some of those transfer schools, but the larger schools, because for example, when Flushing was on that list, it was one of the things that the DLT asked to do. They asked to meet with the principals and really talk about their targets and how they plan on doing that. So if you can get that data for all of our high schools very clearly, so we can see, and actually in maybe just in this way, you know,
Well,
that talks
actually,
about.
I'll put it the way I always do. Please just send me an email asking me for that information. I will then send it to Central and ask them to give us that information, differently than what the way they present
Yeah,
it to
so
us here.
So I'm going to ask this: would there be a DLT member willing to send that email to Gus? Because sometimes when it comes from the superintendent, it doesn't necessarily happen as quickly because we're really asking for some specific data. So is there another DLT member that would be willing to send Gus that email? Perhaps Shirley or Francis or Joe.
And Superintendent DeMango, just so that you're aware, I've asked multiple times for access to Power BI, which was really able to filter down and give us a lot of information. In me in particular, I no longer have that access. So
Yeah. And
I
I
am
know
now
they took,
beholden to other people
yes.
to get me and catch data.
Yeah, I know that they're doing a little bit of a, changing around, just like with data analysis and data organization. Dr. D'Antona is masterful at breaking down data in many ways, but we don't have access to look at the high schools. So I do think it's important that, especially our DLT, we set some, really strong expectations and high expectations. Where we don't like when our data is below the citywide average, and in our high schools it currently is. So, and we just want to be able to target. So I'm really happy to hear, and we love the principal of Flushing. He's done a fantastic job. But now it's about, if it's not Flushing pulling us down any longer, who is it and how can we support? So Joe, I know you wanted to say something.
Yeah, so kind of you kind of read my mind a little bit. So I'm just curious because we lose a lot. I mean, a lot of our schools in the lower grades, the students go to other districts in high school. A lot of them do, right? So I'm just curious as to the number of these students in these categories that bring the data down, and also, like Danielle has mentioned, which school is it? Because maybe we can try to focus on drawing attention to that school and helping things improve. I mean, I have no problem asking Gus for that data, Danielle, if you want me to.
Yeah, if you can, please just say, as a DLT member, we're asking for each individual data for the high schools.
Right, and I'll pass that on. I don't have access to that information, but Joe and DLT, the only thing, and Bill, please, give me your input as well. The only thing I can mention is that in the past, when I have been assigned to various categories of school supports, TSIs, CSIs, etc. I do know just from my past personal experience that there are some transfer schools in your geographic area that I had been assigned to support. And I know that their data, if it takes into account state accountability, would impact the district as a whole, which I believe it does, impact in terms of state accountability. So,
well, that could probably account for some of the differences between the 4-year and the 6-year graduation rate.
right, it could.
Yeah.
So, I don't know that for a fact. I don't want to call out the transfer schools that I had supported in the past, but it is a statistic of interest to see what the other schools are in the geographic area and how they're impacting as a subset in terms of your data as a whole.
The other thing
So-
I could suggest to the DLT, I do have access to the Insight Beta, so I can pull information from like the current year to review. But a lot of the historical data I just don't necessarily have access to.
Yep.
So if you
Thank
want
you
me
for that.
to pull that or to show you that, I can do that for next month.
Yeah,
Let
that
me
would be
know.
helpful, I think, Bill.
All right.
Yes, thank you, Bill.
All right, not a problem. How many slides would you want me to prepare for?
Up to you, as
All
you
right.
know. Yeah.
All right, I'll give you more of a comprehensive look at the D25 high schools within Superintendent 2's constituency.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
I'm going to stop sharing.
Oh, so that's it for the
Oh, do you want me to do
High
the
school-
high school report too? The other
Yep,
piece that I?
yep,
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
Do your regular report.
So does everyone see this?
no.
Oh, you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. So these are the 6 schools that I'm always referring to. And just to give you just a brief understanding, really the most challenging school had been Flushing for many years, and John Bound has had some challenges as well. Those are really the 2 schools that, if you wanted to tier them, are probably going to be provided with more support this year. I also know that Townsend Harris has a very small CTE program. We're going to try to have Townsend Harris work with John Bound to work in a collaborative way for their AP classes. So with that being said, I'm going to move into John Bound specifically, and some of their highlights and celebrations of good work. So on September 12th, the First Lady and Prime Minister of the Ukraine was presented with a survivor tree from John Bound, and you'll know that they have the agricultural program there. They have a multi-acre farm. And this was in honor of the Ukrainian casualties from the war with Russia. The Aggies are honored by the caretakers of the survivor tree seedlings, which go to such important causes all over the world. STEM, right? Science, technology, engineering, and math. And I like to add A, so it's STEAM for art. Is continuing the Engineering Tomorrow partnership that will be meeting with Dr. Woodward to discuss the cutting edge immune therapies to treat various medical conditions. Students have an opportunity to design their own wavelength treatments. The Visual Arts Institute is celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month with an artist spotlight displayed. The FFA, the Future Farmers of America, is a recipient of a $1,000 scholarship from Ford Trucks to help cover the cost of travel to the National FFA convention in Indianapolis. The funds will help the AG, the Aggie communications team, chapter officers of agri-science competitors to get to Indy and compete against other FFA chapters across the nation. 2 students are interning in the superintendent's office, and they're really doing a wonderful job. It's lovely having kids in the office, so that's something that's a real highlight. We are excited that several of our Bound Visual Arts Institute students' artwork will be displayed in the superintendent's office. I could show you that later. We're entering the New York City Department of Sanitation Trucks of Art program, which will provide them with the opportunity to paint a mural on a New York City garbage truck. They're awaiting for the results. And this year, the ACA has a new director of play production, Mr. Walsh, who's also teaching advanced acting. He'll be directing this year's play, The Laramie Project, set to open in December. And former ACA acting major and Bound graduate won the 2022 Emmy for Best Directing of a competition series for Lizzo, Watch Out for the Big Girls. And John Bound's school agri-science department will host their PS 219 kindergarten and first grade classroom at the farm. Kindergartners and first graders will go pumpkin picking, participate in story time, and visit our petting zoo. They're looking forward to an exciting event at PS 219. So again, that's part of that community building, part of the collaborations. And if you have not been to Bound, I would highly suggest everyone to go to Bound. You can probably reach out to me, and I can, probably talk to Dr. Ianella to make sure that you have an opportunity to see the farm, pet the animals. It's really a great place. And then we're going to turn to World Journalism Prep. Dr. Janine Warner, the principal, would like to congratulate Carl Levy. I'm not going to mess this name up. Guerrier, Sky Williams, and Sonia Woodham, as they have been awarded a study abroad scholarship. So let's give them a round of applause. Congratulations. From February 27th to March 7th, the students will travel to Ghana, Africa, for an experiential learning experience like no other. They'll study history, math, journalism, physical education, and art while participating in community service. And that rounds out the high school report. If there's any questions, please let me know.
So Bill, I have a
Yeah.
question.
Yes.
So tomorrow at our principal meeting,
Yes.
we are doing a pumpkin decorating contest,
Yes.
and we need large pumpkins, 7 of them.
Okay.
If I'm gonna go to Stop and Shop and buy them, I'd rather buy them from John Baum if they have them. So
You only need 7?
I only need 7, but they're going to be doing it by tables. And then what we're going to do is we're going to send pictures out to all of our schools, and
Yeah.
the kids are going to vote on the best pumpkin. And
Okay.
then any principal at a table that wins the competition gets a free PD from our team.
Got it.
So, Teresa Mashar is all ready. So she said they need some good stems. So we need them today. I mean, we need them for tomorrow morning. So if they have them, we'd rather make the donation to John Baum because I'm going to go buy them anyway.
So let me call Dr. Iannelli and see if I can make that happen.
Yep.
All right.
But with good stems, according to Teresa.
Good
Teresa, if I
stems.
get it,
Love
at
that
Stop and Shop,
competitive streak.
yeah,
Love the
if I
competitive
get them at
streak.
Stop and Shop, you
And that's 7. You don't
and that's
want more.
7. We
All
want
right.
more. We'll take more, but they
All
have
right.
to be the big ones. And tell them that we're getting it everywhere. It's going to be posted everywhere. We already talked to CSA. We want it in the newsletter, and we will mention John Baum if they got the pumpkins.
All right. I'll make it happen.
Okay, let me know because we
Will
got to
do.
go at like 1 to buy them. Okay, perfect.
Got it.
All right. Any questions about high school? Okay, great. So Gus, if you could, I know we're going to talk about the DCEP template, and I know you also thank you for sending us the goal sheets and the other documents that I gave to the DLT. So can you just kind of review that really quickly, and then Mike and I are going to go into, although we don't have the template yet, we're going to go into our goals and talk about the focus areas of the chancellor.
Yeah, as Danielle mentioned, the template is not available yet. They promised to have it available for the November DLT citywide. The categories, though, have been determined, and that's what's on the chart. If one of you can get the chart up and just share it, Louis, can you do that?
Which chart?
We're talking about
What's
the
the file?
categories, right? The goal chart.
Yeah, I'm going to put that up. I'll put that
Okay.
up with Mike. Yeah. It's
Okay,
in the agenda too.
right. If somebody
Yeah.
could just put that up, and
I'll
those are,
do it, Louis. I could do
okay.
that.
Those are the
Okay. I
categories,
don't know what.
and the good thing is that I know that you have been working with those categories for quite some time. As I mentioned at the outset of the meeting, those categories, the actual chart itself was adopted citywide from your model. And what they did was they added some columns to it. But it's the focus areas of the chancellors related to the pillars are literacy, health and wellness, high academic experience, college and career readiness, and system design and responsiveness, which really is systemic operations and family engagement. So those are the categories, and those are the DCEP goals that we expect to see in the new template. Now, how they're broken up and whether there are any particular pieces to it that may be different from what we've seen in the past, I don't know until we get the actual template. I do know, and I think that Shirley has been part of those discussions. There have been some discussions on how these 5 categories and the DCEP template as a whole at the high school level relates to the DCEP document as a whole. I know that that's been a point of discussion. In the past, as you know, we've had 2 choices. We could either include it in the goals and sort of collapse them together, or have a separate section in the DCEP for high schools as opposed to K to 8. The way we've done it in Queens North is that it's been a separate section. And the 2 sections were sort of put together. So it remains to be seen how that's handled. Was there anything else that you wanted me to talk about, Danielle?
Yeah, the goal sheets that you gave, I sent them to the DLT.
To the DLT,
Mhm.
right? I don't see the gold sheet up here. Does anybody? Can somebody share that?
I'll get it.
Because I had not anticipated sharing them. So they're in my computer, but it would take me a little while to find them.
Yeah, hold on. You could talk about them a little bit while I put it up.
Yeah, I mean, basically, what they want you to do is look at the data that was just presented and see what stands out in terms of the data and what the data indicates should be priority areas to be addressed in the DCEP. It's not a different process than we've done in the past. And using the grid, it says look at where you. They always say you can't get to where you're going if you haven't, know where you've come from.
So I'm sorry, Gus, I didn't mean to interrupt. Can you guys see this?
Well, this is a different chart. This is the, this looks like one
Yeah,
of
no,
the,
that's what I want to show them.
oh,
This
that's what
is,
you want
yeah,
to show. Okay,
this
I
is
didn't
what I
realize.
wanted to show
Yeah,
them. I'm sorry.
these
So,
are the individual school goal, annual
yeah,
goals.
which I
Yes,
like, and I want to say, I like that Gus sends this to me, and I want to share it with the DLT because we talk a lot about what our priority areas are. And then the expectation is that our priorities are built at, across what we're seeing in our schools. So I wanted to share this with the DLT to see if you want to read through some of the schools or all of the schools, or, to kind of this area.
yeah, I mean, you have, if I
So
remember
it's
correctly,
here
you
for
have
you.
a liaison system. So, some of the
I
DLT
can hear.
members would take a particular interest in, I didn't realize that's the chart you were talking about. So, that chart, what it
What's
does
going
is
on
it
with me?
saves you from having to go into every CP in iPlan. It's a convenient way of looking at individual school goals. Now, where are we in the CEP process? Well, all schools are supposed to finalize their document by October 28th. So, and they've all received feedback from the district team in terms of their particular goals. So, these goals were just pulled last week. So they are what the schools currently have in iPlan, and it gives the district an opportunity to see whether the schools have taken the feedback into account and modify their goals if needed, and what their goals are. It also, as the superintendent mentioned, gives you an overview of how these goals relate to each one of the chancellor's priorities and the district priorities and data as a whole. So it's individual school data and then district data. Is that um, is that
Yeah,
clear,
yeah.
Danielle? Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to, I wanted the DLT to have access to the same things we look at. I want to thank Melinda Willens. She actually gave up her Friday nights, Saturday nights, and Sunday nights to sit and read all of our CEPs to really make sure that schools were on the right track. She gave feedback. So we're really in a good space of having that second set of eyes and breaking down the needs of each individual school. She's asking the right questions, and SLTs are responding. So we're excited about that. Any questions around the template and the goal sheet? So what we want to put in place is we want to have these discussions in advance. So when the DCEP template does come out, we're all ready. We're just going to put our documents and information in, and we'll be ready to go to submit our DCEP. But any questions in return? Go ahead. Hi, Shirley.
I have a question. Comment and a question. So districts, right? DLTs are from 3K to 12, right? And I'm talking from the high school point of view. The high school superintendent that sits on the DLT is supposed to be representative of all the high schools. So I would like to know if our collaboration are happening behind the scene prior to the DLT. So we have questions regarding any schools raised that we can get answer to, and especially regarding the goals as well, to make it, more representative of all the high schools in District 25.
So I definitely think, Shirley, you bring up a good question, right? I think there there although we work very well with superintendent two, it's I have to be honest, there's not necessarily an alignment to all of the schools that are represented in District 25. That's not to say that Bill can't speak to them, he can. But if you're saying, and Bill, you might want to talk about like the superintendent goal design. Like I believe that each superintendent sets their own goals, right? So the work that I think we see for District 25 is very heavy on the superintendency that supports the DLT. It's not necessarily in the structure that you're talking about,
Well,
Shirley.
this is my understanding for just whoever sits as this, and this is not for you. This is more for the high school superintendent, in which I had a discussion with them off this in the background, and they ensure me, along with their FLCs, that they will be in collaboration because whoever sits on this DLT is representing all of high schools. Of course, they're going to focus. They're only responsible for their schools, but they are supposed to be in collaboration behind the scenes.
Yeah,
So Bill,
that's my
yeah,
understanding.
yeah. So Bill, do you want to discuss that process? I don't want to speak for the way like the information is organized. So I don't really know how that comes to.
Sure. So basically, any information that I need for the other high schools would essentially come from Gus or someone from Central because I don't have information specifically from them. So yes, I can kind of speak to it, but I don't know those schools intimately, as Superintendent Mango was saying. I have made visits to all of the high schools within Superintendent Two's superintendency, but I don't know the schools outside of her superintendency. And because of my other just my own roles within the superintendency, I don't necessarily have let's say a meeting or things like that to garner or gather or to have those discussions. So a lot of it is again through emails or through just data that I would get from other people or central people.
So I'm going to go back to Gus. Gus,
Yeah,
could you
here's
explain
my
what the process is
yes.
supposed to be?
Here's the process as I understand it. Let me begin from the goal chart that Superintendent DeMango just shared. I sent a similar goal chart to Superintendent Two. So the same information in terms of goals was sent to Superintendent Two by me. Now my assumption is that my colleagues who, for example, the access superintendent or the superintendent that handles transfer schools or any other superintendent that might have a high school in your geographic area received a similar report from one of my colleagues. Then my understanding, and this is something that I know that you and I have talked about in the past, is that the superintendent that has the majority schools in every district, every geographic district, is supposed to interact with their counterparts at superintendent's meetings or offline on their own. I can tell you, and you know this because you and I have sat on Queens in District 24, for example, in the past. One of the superintendents that did not have the majority actually had representatives on the DLT or came to the DLT himself. So every superintendent that has schools in the geographic area has the option to participate either on their own through a representative. Because of the nature of it, because there may be spread through so many districts, that might not be practicable. So my understanding is that that's supposed to take place between superintendency and superintendency. That is about the best understanding that I can give you, Shirley, on this question, which is a discussion that has been taking um, um, uh, um, over time has been an ongoing discussion, and also relates to what Superintendent Lindsay, our former superintendent, who's now the head of all superintendents. It's my understanding that Superintendent Lindsay is addressing the DCEP for all high schools, for example. So that might be part of the discussion. So you actually might have more insight into the discussion than I do. But as you know, I brought up this issue probably going back more than a decade in terms of the dynamics and the interaction between superintendencies. But that's my understanding. As it's a collaboration between superintendents.
Thank you. Yeah, we're on the same understanding, right?
Okay.
But I don't think all the superintendents are on the same understanding. I know that's what they say it's supposed to be, but I don't think it's happening. And I'm not talking about just this district. I'm just saying for all 7 districts, some are better than others. You know, like you said, District 24, actually Alan Chang was the sitting superintendent for all the superintendents for District 24. And you know,
Even though he
but
did not
again,
have the majority schools.
even though he
Right.
had not a majority, but it was decided that he'll be the
Right.
representing
Yeah.
superintendent for that district. So
So it's a
yeah,
discussion among superintendents. That's above my level.
thank you.
Yep. Okay. And Shirley, thank you for that. Yeah, I think you bring up a good topic that should be taken back, Gus, and just in terms of like what's the structure, especially now, because I think with so many new superintendents, I'm sorry to keep my camera off, but I don't know what's happening to my signal, so I'm keeping my camera off. Especially that we have so many new superintendents, and there is a real reconnection to making sure DLTs run as efficiently as District 25's does. So, as part of that work, I think,
Well,
mentioning what the relationship mentioning the relationship and how the streamline of information for high schools should really be part of that discussion. So, I'm in agreement with Shirley, and if you could escalate that back to the planning committee, I think that's really
again,
important.
it's always helpful for me to have something in writing because for 2 reasons. One, it expedites my process, and these issues, are fraught with details. So if someone could put it, whether it's going to be from Joe or whoever it's going to be, put it in the terms that you want it addressed. My role would be to pass it on to leadership, to my leadership, who then will pass it on and interact with whoever they have to in order to get us answers. And I can tell you that I've done this in the past, and the resolution that I received, and I'm very, I'm pleased and honored that Shirley is here because she checks me, and her understanding and my understanding are identical, based on our interaction here.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm not saying this for any other reason, but I do want Central to see our DLT as leadership and not just. I'm happy to send it, but surely if you really, if that's something you can send to Gus to really say, like, as a, however you wanted to represent it, to say like it was a discussion at the D25 DLT, but we really want, as we're creating these goals, for it to be representative of all high schools, not just the high schools that are assigned to, to represent, at DLTs, and what is the systems and structures for that. So if you could send that to Gus, because I think it's an
I will
important
send it
voice.
to Gus. Not a problem.
Thank you. Thank you. I
Mhm.
appreciate it.
Not a problem.
Okay. All right. So what I wanted to, and Mike, you want me, I can put it up, or do you want to put it up? Yep. So I wanted to just show you where we are currently with our DLT goals, our DCEP goals. And then if you could, what we will have for our next meeting is a document where we're going to ask the DLT to make sure there is alignment between the District 25 goals and the expectations within the chancellor's focus areas. Hold on, let me get those up for me too. All right, DLT agenda. Okay. So we started in September by showing you the document that we did with our principals that said, like, here's the chancellor's priorities. What did we hear the chancellor say? And what are we already doing in District 25, if you remembered that document? And so the activity that I want us to engage in at our next meeting is looking at our DCEP goals. And although the chancellor's pillars are still the same, I think the wording on the DCEP is a little bit differently. Like, he doesn't necessarily talk about system design and responsiveness in his speech. It is very similar, but that will be in the DCEP or discussion around the DCEP. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at our goals, the way we have them structured, and then make sure that they're hitting the chancellor's pillars so we can actually just fit them in to these different categories that will be discussed. So, you know, as you can see, our ELA goal is basically our literacy goal. You know, high quality academic experiences you see in our math goals, right? And our ELA goal. And college and career readiness is something that I think we will need to talk more about to make sure that it's clear. And that would include the high school. So Bill, if you can next month have, you know, the set of high school goals prepared as well, and then we can merge them.
Sure,
If
I
that's
can do
okay.
that. Not a problem.
Now, Gus, is there going to be a different high school section? Do we know
We
that?
don't know yet.
Okay. So
That's
we could do,
one of the
yeah.
things that's being discussed. That's my
Oh,
understanding.
Shirley's saying no. I love that Shirley's on our
No.
team. I love
No,
it.
no, yeah, it's undecided. It's
Oh,
undecided.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's still
I mean,
undecided. Yeah.
but we could do both. You know, I mean, we can merge, we can separate, but I think we should talk about it together anyway in a K to 12 model. So, you know, and then Mike and I are really going to work with our principals, and, you know, we're happy to say that we have a new student services manager. We're really going to start honing in on our SEL goal. Francis, you know, I know that you really spend, I don't know what happened to you, Mike. You really spend a lot of time talking about SEL and health and wellness with us. So, I mean, look, this is a blank slate for us. It's not that we're not doing SEL. I want to be really clear. We have such great systems and structures in our schools. But, you know, we want to hear from the DLT really about areas that we want to see around health and wellness, especially as we're emerging through the pandemic. And I say this all the time. I can write the goals for us. It's okay. You know, we're good. But I really do want to hear from you all just around key areas for our kids. And so if there is anything you want us to target specifically around SEL, please, you know, be prepared to talk about that. So so I just wanted to kind of show this to you. We will email this to you, the SMART goal sheet, alongside the proposed focus areas within the DLT to give you something to think about. But next month, there will be an activity where we're really looking at all of that. And Bill, you know, if you wanted to send us the goals once they're ready, we can also share that with the DLT as well. Okay, any questions around that? I think we're in a good space though with that, Gus. Yes.
Yes, I think you're you know, you're right on target. When we see the actual template, I believe the work that you've done will fit nicely into whatever the new template is.
Yep. Okay. Perfect. The last part of the agenda, we're going to talk about the DLT SLT training, but I wanted to really save that for the end. We'll do that in the minutes. But so I know we did the superintendent's report, but Shirley, I didn't know, do you have a high school president's council report? And thank you for sending us the other report for the Central
Citywide
High
High
School.
School
Yeah, Citywide
Subcommittee.
High School. I called it Citywide High School Subcommittee. Yes.
And so that one, the main point of that, besides getting a new superintendent, and we just spoke about them Dr. Alan Chang, who is a consortium International Outbound Schools, is the new superintendent that will oversee the citywide high school subcommittee meetings. And the new facilitator is Jessica Long, who's again is part of his team. And the main focus, besides in getting introductions and stuff, and saying goodbyes to the former superintendent Pert and Nate Dudley, a school without borders. And they show that how they already have 2 schools up and running for the 9th grade for high schools, with schools without borders, remote learning, as we formally know them as. In regards to Queens High School President's Council updates, we have our meeting tonight because last Monday was a holiday. We're going to have elections for our non-mandatory members. Our last meeting, we discussed the importance of school leadership team, Title I high schools. Again, all high schools who are Title I must report to the Title I PAC chairs, and alternates report to their geographic DPAC. And the importance of having representative on the school leadership team. We went over how to do expedited elections, and the importance again to make sure that all PTA presidents are in place, because they are a core member of the school leadership team, tying all the leadership memberships together, and also the importance and how they work together, and making sure that the school's comprehension education plan, the parent voice is in involvement in that as well, and how Title I funds are being spent. What else? For high school, again, our superintendents, for all the superintendents, are still doing their listening tours, and community walks and talks. They're having, I'm going to call them roundtable discussion. Everybody's calling it a different name. For Bill, help me out. I forgot what Queens North is calling it, where they having a discussion with the different stakeholders and also with parents. Can't think of the name. I just went mental
The
there.
parent focus group.
Yep, there you go. A parent focus group for Queens. What's in the name? For her schools and each individual high schools. I think we have a New Vision school. Saturday they had their engagement with parents, reimagining the family voice. That's Richard Cintron. I can't tell you which New Vision school is in District 25 off the top of my head, but I know there's one. And that's it. I'm gonna keep it very much as simple. Bill went over, the high school stuff and this upcoming community walks and talks. And they're rounding out they came out with a final schedule for Dr. Tu's schools. And that's it for Queens High School President's Council.
Thank you, Shirley. I know that District 25 President's Council meeting is tonight. Is Frances on? We lose her? Yeah, I don't know if she had to leave, but Frances and I will be presenting tonight. And Joe, I didn't know if you had any feedback that you wanted to.
Do you mind if I just want
Go
to
ahead.
say something?
Yeah.
Okay, so on CEC, we had an interesting meeting last week regarding the high school admissions process and the changes. And we had a really interesting conversation. And like Danielle said, very respectful of all groups. But the thing that struck a chord with me, I've been engaging with a lot of people in the community since that meeting. And a lot of the parents or a lot of the students in our district, because we are not really merit-based on the numbers to get into high school. I mean, they've made the numbers smaller. They categorize Section 1 as 90 to 100%. These students, I think they now feel like we don't have to work hard to get any, it doesn't matter anymore if I really work hard. And I think that really struck a chord with me, because it's creating a problem in the motivation of our students. And I think it's going to have a negative impact on our district. I don't know where it's going, but that's something that came out of that meeting to me. And I think it's going to be a big problem.
Yes, and I think Matt was very fair in hearing those concerns and bringing them back to the chancellor's office. I also know that there was another community member that did talk about the lottery numbers, and saying that if it's, to really revisit those numbers and make sure that they're shuffled with each selection, because what happened last year to some of our kids was that if a child got a bad number, they didn't make it into any of their schools. So like if the number, let's just say was 76, was a bad lottery number, that number 76 went into all 12 applications. So so they were also asking that to be looked at. Shirley, I see your hand.
Yeah, so you know that they updated the admission policy. That lottery is really not like last year. Because there's some schools who already had certain programs that were lottery. They went back in tier one grades are now back to 92 and higher, if I'm correct, or is it 90 and higher? But
It's
they are
90.
I think it's 90 and
yeah,
higher.
90 and higher. I think that is to get the balance of back to. I think honestly, it's like back to what it was before, unless it was. I think it was 92 and higher, but whatever. So it's less people in tier one now with that admission policy regarding for high school, and we talk about high schools. We're not talking about middle school, right, Joe?
Yeah. So I mean,
Mhm.
but so the that group that we're talking about, you're talking about the 98 to 100 average students. I mean, we have many applicants that are in that group, and a lot of the problems that I've experienced from parents that approached me were their son or daughter had a 99, 100 average and didn't make one of their selected high school choices. So it's still a problem, but I just don't know what the psychological effects are on those students. And, the discussion regarding motivation really hits me because, it just shows that these kids are not really willing to work as hard because they say it's not going to make a difference. If I don't have that lottery number in the 90 or 92 to 100, I have a problem, So that's something that we should look out for. I'm not
No, it's
saying
not
I'm
a
against it
lottery.
or
That's
for
the
it.
thing is that's why I'm getting confused. It's not a lottery. It is by rating, right? It's back to
No, the way it goes is last year it was 85 to 100 and everyone went into the equal lottery. So they didn't necessarily go back to merit based, which is like if I have 100, I get in over somebody who has a 92. So now
this
what they're doing is they're taking the number that they move the number up to 90. But if you have a 90 average and somebody who has a 99 average, you go into the same pool of lottery.
Okay, I understand what you say. I know the
Yeah.
pool is shortened, but we could have,
Yeah.
but then there's a lot of stakeholders that wanted more playing field for everyone
Mm-hmm.
because if you only go by numbers, the numbers don't tell the whole picture of the student either. So, but could be a different discussion off, offline
Yeah.
with that because there's so many opposing views or similar views, but with a little tweak to it. So but right now that is the policy. But if we can have a discussion, like maybe another meeting, or if I can, if because I have so many meetings, come on that CEC meeting. I want, I just want to hear,
I put the
see,
link to the recording in the chat, Shirley.
Yeah.
If you
okay,
want
Yeah.
to watch the
so I can look
recording,
at that.
it's
Yeah.
it's a good presentation.
Yeah. And I do want to say I really appreciated the community conversation because there were opposing sides, and it was really about, pushing the thinking of both sides. But the other concerning thing that was brought up, and I don't think this did change, is that when you go into that lottery between 90 and 100, and the same thing happened last year with 85 and 100, you get one number, right? So let's just say like, I applied to 12 schools. Of those 12 schools, I get one number, right? And however the lottery works, the numbers, if you get a bad number, you may not ever get into a school of your choice. And that's what another thing that the community was asking, that if I apply to Francis Lewis, Flushing, in 5 other schools, that every time I go into that lottery of that school, I get a different number assigned to me. The old way, if I got 77, 77 went through all my schools, and they're saying that put kids at a disadvantage too. So I don't know, but that was something that came up. Go ahead, Joe.
I'm sorry, we got so many issues coming up these days. So another issue that I've been kind of involved with other CEC presidents is fair student funding, the budget. So now there's a group that's going, well, the DOE through the Fair Student Funding Committee is going around and having these hearings where they're presenting certain models where they're taking money to give to those poverty-stricken areas, but they're not giving them additional funds. What they're doing is they're taking the money from other groups and they're reallocating. So it looks like our district is going to definitely lose funding, because what they're going to do is they're going to take money from our district and give it to those districts that have greater need in terms of poverty, right? So I spoke up against it because I think they really shouldn't take money away from any school or any student, but it's something that's going to happen. And I think the Fair Student Funding Committee is going to give some type of report on October 31st. And I don't think the community is aware of the implications regarding fair student funding and the budget, but it's definitely going to
I'm going to have to jump in here.
Go ahead.
That is not correct information. What they had was engagement for the communities and gave proposals or asked questions on people's proposals or suggestions. It was just a conversation. Nothing has been settled. This was an invitation for the community, for all those. They did 4 different engagements for the community to have input and stakeholders to give input and suggestions, and had conversations on their suggestions. What was the Fair Student Funding thinking about themselves? But nothing is final. So to say that's what's going to happen, it's not really true. They wanted feedback. And matter of fact, knowing people who are on the PEP, because PEP is part of that Fair Student, and then there's other people who are part of the Fair Student. They wanted more people to engage. Not that many people engaged. They wanted bigger engagement because they really want to hear from their constituents proposals before they make any suggestion. Because bottom line, it's the chancellor is the one who's going to implement it. He could go totally against the task force, what he's saying. So, but they wanted to get as much feedback from stakeholders as possible. So they were just discussing ideas and suggestions. Nothing is final.
I understand this is a discussion. There has been community feedback. I don't think our community has been given the opportunity to speak up as much. But again, I looked at all the models, and if they come up with anything, I think most of those models will have a negative impact on us. I hope it doesn't happen, but I know it's discussion. Well, we have to see what happens.
Then I'm going to encourage you, and that's all of us, right? To get people to send in suggestions. They do have an email. If they did not participate, maybe they're going to plan to do more. But Central was supposed to send out to everybody, so people will come out and to be engaged. And that's why they had the 4 dates. But just because they don't have an official engagement doesn't mean we can't send in proposals, ideas, and etc. So that's what I would encourage. And since I'm sitting here at District 25, I'm talking about District 25. If you have concerns, send in your suggestions, concerns to them, and to make sure our voices are being heard at the table. Or being,
Shirley, do you have the email? Because I know that the engagement is with the community, but we haven't, as Central, received anything around any of the proposals. So do you have the email that you can maybe throw in the chat?
I'm gonna look for it. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
And then I'll put it in the chat.
Okay.
Thank you, Shirley.
Thank you. Okay, so are there any other constituencies that have any announcements to make, Teresa or Lamar? Okay, no.
No,
we are good.
Today.
Teresa said, okay, thank you. All right, so the one last thing I wanted to talk about, in Lewis, if you could pull up both the agenda and the actually we could click off of the agenda from and the flyer. If you could show the flyer first from last year's DLT training, which we had in March. The DLT SLT training. Did he hear me?
I'm
Okay.
scrambling. You want the agenda and the flyer?
Yeah, just
from the
show the
event?
flyer. Just show the flyer really quick. I
Sure.
mean, we could keep the flyer the
Yep.
same if everybody agrees. Lewis can add a couple of things to it, but to just make sure that this is okay. Now, Bill, you know, are we still set to have it for the November date? November, hold on, let me just check the date on here. Give me 1 second. I think it was set for our next DLT meeting, November 14th, but let me just say it is, right?
You guys see it?
Yes. So that's the flyer. So if everybody's okay with that, we can leave that. And then this is the agenda. So I know that Shirley, you did A665 and SLT 101 with you and Gus. Dr. D'Antona did benchmarking of CEP goals. I don't know if we would necessarily call it that, and like you can actually maybe do like monitoring process of CEP goals and what that should look like at SLTs. Francis and I did MTSS, and then we had Paula Latito do school budgets. So I didn't know if we wanted to make any changes to this.
Danielle, there's one comment that I have to make. I would strongly urge you not to do the training in lieu of the DLT meeting as you have in the past, because the November agenda has crucial items: the DCEP, the consolidated plan, the DCIP, and they're time-sensitive items. So you can do it in addition, obviously, you know, at a different time, but we really have to hold the separate DLT meeting.
I don't think
month.
I don't think we were planning on doing that. We would do it after school.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I think let me just check the minutes really quickly. We were planning on November 14th, which is our next meeting, correct? Let me see. Just give me 1 second. Yes. November 14th is our next meeting, but I think we were planning on doing it live after school and live streaming. That's what our plan was. So, I guess my first question is Shirley, Francis, I'll ask her later. Gus, is everybody okay to do their same or similar presentation as they did last year?
Definitely.
Definitely. Gus, yes.
Gus are hip.
Yeah.
Tied to the hip.
Yep. So Shirley, if you look on the attachments that I sent or in our DLT folder, your presentation slides from last year are there. You see on the agenda there in the blue, you can actually click on that, and those are last year's agenda slides. So any changes that you want to make. And so if there's anyone else that wants to do any other types of presentations or be on the agenda, that is totally up to you. I am going to do, as part of my introduction, really expectations of what should be available to SLTs. I think it's really important that we talk about data and we talk about budget and we talk about CEP and we talk about all those things being present in order to allow them to do their work and the right kind of work. So that's what I will be preparing. Lewis will have a similar, what we're called kind of like running agenda that's going to be for the November 14th date. We will push, thank you, Shirley. She just put the Fair Student Funding Task Force email in there. We will go over that. I will be emailing you along the way, and we will do a final run of show on November 14th during our DLT meeting. But I'm thinking, Bill, if you could share with the principal of John Baum, I'm thinking that we could do it from maybe 3:30 to 5:30, if everybody's okay with that. You know, like I said, we're going to be live streaming, but we ask that, and make sure everybody's okay with that, that the DLT be live. If not, Louis, we might have to do it a little bit different. If there's other people, you know, if the DLT who's presenting can't be live, right? You can't live stream and have somebody talk through it at the same time, right?
What's the question? I don't understand.
So, I mean, if we're going to do it,
the presenter.
yeah, you can't do, but the presenter would have to be live, right?
Well, now the computer would have to be plugged into like the speakers so that the person on the screen would be loud enough to be,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like typically when we stream, we're not getting audio from the audience. So like kind of like at CEC meetings when there's a presenter, their voice comes out of the smart board. We would need that set up at the high school so that the people sitting in the auditorium will be able to hear the presenter.
Okay, so unless,
Yeah.
you know, unless any of the presenters have concern, we would say that the presenters would be live. We will offer live training to all of the SLT members, but it will also be live streamed and recorded. Any objections?
So
I
Superintendent,
think that more people are going to join remotely.
Yep, go ahead, Bill.
I just have a question. So what exactly would you need from Bound? Just like a library, or what's the request?
Well, we normally do the auditorium.
Okay.
I can
All right.
say, you know, listen, I don't want, if it's a lot, Bill, and I'm really genuinely saying this, you know,
Yeah.
we have some of our elementary and middle schools that have very large auditoriums. Like we could ask IS 25. So if it is a lot, like if they have a lot of after school programs and it's going to be an issue, just let me know, because
right,
we
I'll
can
let you
have
know.
it we can have it in another school. I would rather the pumpkins over the space.
All right. So I do have some information on the pumpkins. I was doing that in the background. So she only has small pumpkins. She doesn't have large ones with very nice
Oh.
stems. I apologize. Yeah.
That's okay.
So
All right. We'll buy the
I want to Stop
large
and Shop.
pumpkins. Yeah, we're going to Stop and Shop right after this. All right. All right. Thank you so much. All right. So, but Bill, you'll let me know, because we want to
definitely, yeah.
send
No,
out.
it's approaching
Yeah.
quickly. Yeah. And
We
that's
wanna
the
send out the
14th,
flyer.
correct?
Yep. And we're going to invite the whole team.
Got it.
You know, all of the members of the SLT. We're going to also share that with you, Bill, if you can make sure that all of the high schools get it, so the high school SLTs come as well.
Got it.
So we would really need, I would say, you know, a space that could fit over 200 people. I don't think that many will show, but you know, I just would want to be prepared.
Yeah.
And
What we can do is when we're going to do registration. So if we see registration is low, we can pivot to a smaller space, like all beforehand.
Yep. But we will keep updating the agenda as the date goes, from 3:30 to 5:30. And so if you guys can, you know, I'll be sending reminders to sort of check the agendas, check that rolling agenda to make sure you're clicking on the, you know, on the presentation, so everybody knows what's going on. And then if there are people who, of course, want to add to the presentation. And then Gus, you and I will plan a separate Title I meeting.
Sure.
Right. And we can organize that as well. And we'll make sure that we announce that at the meeting on the 14th. So this way everyone has it. Okay. No, Marissa, they're talking about the after school meeting,
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. Thanks. Okay. Louis, really.
Superintendent Domingo, can you
Yep.
can you email me that flyer so I can send it to the principals?
Yep, we're going to update it, and now that we had that conversation, and we'll email it to
that's
you, and it'll
year's,
go out
that's
to all.
last year's flyer. We'll make a
Yep.
new one.
Got it.
We'll make it
Yeah.
today, and
one last question: should I include all high schools or just in D25?
just D25.
Got it.
D25 high schools.
Yeah. I mean, although we'd like to
And
share our
we'll-
knowledge,
I know.
Yeah, and can you get the D25 high schools that are not part of superintendent too?
we have that. We have
So
that
who's
information.
emailing those? We're emailing those superintendents. Those schools?
Janet. Yeah, Janet usually does that.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
Janet will
okay.
email them. But I think Bill, that's actually part of what Shirley's talking about. So that's up to you. You might, if you wanted to ask your FSL, your family support liaison, if they wanted to do that, it's up to you. You let me know. We'll talk about that offline.
All right. Yeah, I don't know if we have a FSL.
You do. What's his name?
Family support, FSC, family support
F-
coordinator.
Oh, it's either Eduardo or David Swift.
Or yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably
Yeah.
David. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, not a problem.
And then, all right. So, Louis, last but not least, if you could just put up the minutes.
The minute.
So we can go through them, but we'll also be putting them in the folder. I apologize. I thought they were sent to everyone, but they were only
Yep,
sent
they're
to
already
me.
in
So
they are already in the
Yep.
folder as well.
Perfect. Really talks about everything we talked about today. Everything's here. Just talked about the reading priority that we addressed the last meeting.
And the bylaws have been done now, right?
Yep, bylaws are done. Louis, you said, and if everyone could go into the chat and sign in, please. Our new President's Council president, who is representing us on the DLT. We are currently in need of a DPAC. Esther is returning today, and she will be working on getting a DPAC representative for us. His bylaws, you can go through that. I updated everyone on my listening and learning tour. I have one of them in about 20 minutes at the pre-K center. I'm very excited about that. Our constituencies. And Lamar talked about Andy Young, who created a puppet, and for him, and now I have one for myself. I made him do it for me too. He's amazing. High school report.
My puppet is better. I just felt the need to say that. That's all. It has nothing to do with that.
Should go get mine right now. Oh, Bill. Oh.
Yeah.
We need a CEC student rep. Can you please? I mean, I'm dying over here. I can't contact anybody anymore. How do they not want to do this? My daughter's applying to college. This looks so good on a college application. Why is nobody doing this?
That is the trend across the city.
What, that they're not
Is it-
joining it?
Yeah, it's because it's only to seniors specifically, and
I know, yeah, we've mentioned that. That's state law, which is kind of silly, right?
Yeah.
I know. But Bill, can you do some reaching out to your high schools again?
Absolutely. I'll see what I can do.
Yeah.
What time are those meetings? What's the date and
They're-
times?
Usually it's 7 p.m. It's the first Wednesday of every month.
Got it.
And lately, I mean, they have an option to be remote. I mean, we're hybrid, but they don't have to come until unless the law changes.
Got it.
But yeah, we would love to have them. Last year, our student leader was amazing.
If they're
She
not
was
online, where are
great.
they
She was
held?
great. Yes.
They're held here at Linden Place.
Oh, okay. Got it.
And we modified our bylaws so we can even do video conferencing. It's okay if they don't want to attend.
Yep.
Okay. I'll check into it. I'll try to find someone.
All right.
I'm sure we have more than enough students that would probably love to partake.
Yeah, I'll get Joe, I'll call Carly and get the application again, and then I'll send it over to you, Bill.
Okay, I'll make sure she gets it too also.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
All right. So
That's it.
yeah. Okay. So is everybody in consensus on the minutes? Any objections to the minutes? Okay. I will see all of you guys the morning of the 14th at 9 and then the afternoon of the 14th at 3:30. Thank you all. This was a very productive meeting. Have a great next few weeks and we'll be in touch.
Bye, everyone. Have a great day.
Appreciate the
great day,
leadership.
everyone.
Everybody.
Take
All right.
care, everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye.